Please welcome Cristina Cavazos.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. I hope all of you are having a wonderful day today. What a great Accelerate it's been so far this morning, and I hope everyone has a great time the rest of the week. My name is Cristina Cavazos, and I'm a training manager with Amazon Ads. And to get us started today, I want to start with sharing a number with y'all. And that number is 1 million. This is the number of small and medium-sized businesses that we researched to bring you the key insights for today. They span all categories on Amazon, sell all kinds of products, and have a range of budgets and revenues. And what we found were the top 7 tactics that the top 10% of brands use in their ad strategy measured by ROAS. And I'm so excited to share them with all of you today. So thank you so much for joining me, and welcome to the top 7 tactics that the top 10% of brands use in their ad strategy. To share a bit about me, as I said before, my name is Cristina Cavazos, and I'm a training manager with Amazon Ads. I spend days leading trainings for sellers like yourself to help you get to know Amazon Ad Solutions and how you can use them most effectively to help reach your advertising goals. So let's talk about what we'll cover today. The first thing that we're going to do is go over the methodology behind the research. Second, we'll dive into the results, going over what the top 10% of brands did differently. And then finally, I'll be joined by Jeff Cohen, who's a fellow Amazonian, and we'll discuss how you can craft your advertising strategy to stand out in the Amazon store and ultimately grow your business. As a reminder, you can use your in-app QR scanner to scan this code here to submit and vote for questions during the Q&A session. So let's learn a bit about the methodology behind the research. For the study, as I said, we analyzed over 1 million small and medium-sized brands in the US. We focused on month-over-month ROAS, looking at overall sponsored products, sponsored brands, and sponsored display ROAS growth. As a quick reminder on what ROAS is, it stands for return on ad spend, and it's calculated by ad attributed sales divided by ad spend. So why focus on ROAS? We did this because we know it's a really important metric when looking at advertising performance, but it's definitely not the only metric to look at. Looking at other KPIs like new to brand purchases, clicks, impressions, store visits, and so many more are also important to measure success, especially when it comes to awareness and consideration campaigns, which can have a long-term positive impact on your ROAS and your business. In analyzing these brands, we place them into 2 buckets. The first bucket consists of the top 10% of brands based on month-over-month ROAS growth. And then the second bucket refers to the bottom 10% of brands based on month-over-month ROAS growth. We leverage machine learning to identify the top ad strategies that helped drive success for these brands. And then finally, we compared the 2 groups, and we looked at the differences in campaign strategies. So let's get right into it. Now, the first thing that I want to know is how many of you here today have an active sponsored products campaign? You can go ahead and raise your hand. I love that. It looks like so many of y'all already do. And to give you a quick hint, that's something that the top 10% of brands are also doing. So you're already winning there. Now, raise your hand if you have an active sponsored display campaign. Awesome. And then what about sponsored brands? Great. So one learning that came from this study is that the top 10% of brands leverage multiple ad solutions. That includes sponsored products, sponsored brands, and sponsored display. Of the top 10%, 96% use sponsored products, 23% use sponsored brands, and 17% use sponsored display. These are all extremely powerful tools when it comes to telling your brand story, reaching new customers, and helping your business stand out. So now I want to talk about the shopping journey. And I want all of you to remember that the shopping journey is not always linear. Us and our customers make decisions differently. We think differently, and we shop differently. Some make a purchase, then fall back into the consideration stage, exploring other products and options from your brand. And then some are aware of your brand, but they're still researching the category before they move into consideration and then lead to purchase. Since the journey does not move in a straight line, I recommend to run multiple campaigns, each with their own objective, combining multiple solutions like the top brands did. This will help you show up for existing and potential customers in their unique shopping journey when it's most relevant for them. So with that, let's dive into the 7 tactics used by the top 10% of sellers. And as I share these tactics, I want all of you to keep an eye out on what these brands are doing differently than what you're doing right now. And think about how you can implement them into your strategy if you aren't already. So with that, let's dive into the first tactic, and that's launching a sponsored brands campaign. Brands in the top 10% use the sponsored brands ad format 1.4 times more than the bottom 10%. They saw double the ROAS growth compared to those who didn't. So if you're not running sponsored brands, I highly recommend that you do so. This format can help you build long-term relationships with your shoppers, educate them about your brand, and increase conversions using engaging creatives. There's 3 different types of formats with this, and that's product collection, store spotlight, and video. Let's dive into those a little bit more, starting with Sponsored Brands Product Collection. With this, you can promote multiple products, like a collection of your best sellers or deals. Your brand logo is featured on the ad, and to help you stand out more, you can use a custom image to help tell your brand story. This ad drives shoppers to a page in your store or to a page that Amazon automatically generates consisting of the products that are in your ad. And now for Store Spotlight. With this, you can share your product collection and make the best use of your store. And then with Sponsored Brands Video, which I have to say, I love video. I think it's extremely engaging. This is a great way to stand out in desktop and mobile shopping results in an instantly engaging way. You can promote specific products like a bestseller, a new product, or one that a deal is running on. And when shoppers click, they're directed to your product detail page or to your store, whichever you choose. Let's see an example. That was great. I know I'm craving popcorn now. So moving on to the second action that the top 10% of brands do differently. Along with sponsored products, sponsored brands, they're also launching sponsored display. In fact, they did so 1.4 times more than the bottom 10%. And they saw 5 times higher month-over-month ROAS growth compared to brands that didn't launch sponsored display. And brands who launched a sponsored products campaign and launched a sponsored display campaign for the first time saw a sponsored products ROAS growth that was 10 times higher than those who didn't launch a sponsored display campaign. Like the top 10%, I would consider leveraging sponsored display. With these ads, you can reach shoppers across all different types of formats, websites, and devices, reaching them where they browse, stream, and shop, and not just on Amazon.com. Sponsored display uses machine learning and Amazon's first-party insights to make complex digital advertising campaigns simple for you to use. The campaign settings are flexible and customizable. You can use images or videos as creatives and can have Amazon automatically adjust your bids to help achieve your desired outcomes. You can reach entire categories and new audiences who are shopping on other product detail pages and bring them straight to your product detail page in your category. This way, you're creating opportunities to engage with shoppers without relying on keywords alone. Your ads can appear on the Amazon store and on third-party websites as well. In the Amazon store, sponsored display ads can appear in product detail pages, shopping results, or on the Amazon homepage. Ads can display on Twitch as well, which if you're not aware of what Twitch is, it's a live streaming and global community for content that spans gaming, entertainment, and so much more. In fact, in 2022, Twitch saw 31 million daily visitors with 1.3 trillion minutes watched. Now you know about sponsored display and some results that the top brands saw with it. So that means that you're ready for our third tactic, which is to create a store and use the sponsored brand's store spotlight ad format. Based on sponsored display ROAS growth, brands in the top 10% use the sponsored brand store spotlight format 1.6 times more than those in the bottom. And brands that use sponsored brand store spotlight saw a 21 times higher growth in their sponsored display ROAS than those who didn't. So I'm sure you're picking up on a trend here, and that's using multiple ad solutions together can help grow your brand. In this instance, we're making a connection between a sponsored brands campaign and sponsored display ROAS growth. So let me put this into context for you. I want you to imagine something. Imagine that shoppers view your sponsored brands ad. They click on it, and then they're directed to your store. Here, they might look through your product collection and then click into a product detail page. And then they might add your product to what they're considering to buy. In fact, brands who link their sponsored brands campaign to a store saw a 55% increase in product detail page views and a 15% increase in sales. So now let's bring sponsored display into the mix. Sticking with that same shopper that we were imagining before, let's say that that shopper decides to think about their options for a couple of days before making their decision to purchase. And during those days, they're on Twitch, and they see your sponsored display ad, they remember your product detail page in your store, they click on it, and they make a purchase. This is an example of how sponsored display and sponsored brands can work together to help you stay top of mind with your shoppers. And that leads us to tactic number 4, which is to use sponsored display views remarketing to reach shoppers who have already viewed one or more of your product detail pages. This tactic was adopted 1.8 times more by the top 10% compared to the bottom. And brands that use views remarketing in their sponsored display campaigns saw a ROAS growth 16 times more than those that didn't. Let's dive a little bit deeper into this with a video.
Let's see how to use views remarketing in your sponsored display campaigns to engage audiences who have viewed specific product detail pages, which can help you drive awareness and consideration, even convert missed sales. In your sponsored display campaign, choose audiences as your targeting strategy. Then pick views remarketing. Include audiences who have viewed your advertised products detail pages or the detail pages of similar products. You'll see these already added by default, and you can keep or remove any of them. Plus, you can reach shoppers who view detail pages in various categories. Use our suggestions or search for ones yourself. Set the look-back window to specify the window of time for views. You can refine any of them by features like price or star rating.
So as you saw, you're able to pick from one or more of the following audiences. That's shoppers who viewed your advertised product, viewed products similar to yours, and viewed products in a specific category. And with that, let's move on to the next 2 tactics, which also have to do with sponsored display. When setting up a sponsored display campaign, you're able to choose from 2 different creative options, automated and custom. Now I'm curious to know, which do you think the top 10% of brands use more, automated or custom? You can yell it out to me, or you can think about it. Thank you. So I heard a little bit of both answers, but if you thought or said both, you're right. The top 10% of brands were 1.5 times more likely to use automated and 1.7 times more likely to use custom creatives than the bottom 10% of brands. So when do you use one versus the other? That's a great question, and let's walk through it now. On the left here, you'll see an automated creative. These are automatically generated with product imagery from your product detail page and placed on a white background. And then custom product images, which you can see on the right, allow you to upload your own lifestyle images, maybe those showing your product in use. They both include dynamic elements like star rating, product titles, pricing, and an add to cart or shop now call to action. I would consider using different images for different objectives. Let's think about the first objective that you can use it for. If you're advertising to those that are unfamiliar with your product or brand, use custom image. This can help them learn about your brand story and get excited about your product and the experience that they'll have with it. If you have insights on a creative that you already have that drives high engagement and drives traffic, I would consider using that. And these ads link directly to your product detail pages. Now, for another objective, if you're advertising to audiences that are already familiar with your brand, I would consider using automated creatives. An example here is if you're using views remarketing and you choose that you only want your ad shown to shoppers who have previously viewed your product detail pages, they may already be familiar with your products, and then when they see this ad, they'll remember the picture straight from your product detail page. This can increase the relevancy of your ad to shoppers, helping capture their attention, then leading to clicks, and then hopefully, ultimately leading to a purchase. And now, for my last recommendation, I wanted to go full circle and come back to sponsored products, as so many of you said that you're running those campaigns already. As I mentioned at the beginning, combining your existing sponsored products campaigns with sponsored brands and sponsored display can help ensure that you're reaching shoppers at different stages when it's most relevant to them. So the last tactic that we're going to touch on today helps you ensure that you're doing exactly that, reaching them when it's most relevant. And that's using negative keyword targeting with your sponsored products campaigns. Negative keyword targeting can help prevent your ads from displaying against customer shopping queries that may be irrelevant or that may not be performing well at all. The top 10% of brands were 1.2 times more likely to use negative keyword targeting. And brands who use negative keyword targeting in their sponsored products campaigns saw a ROAS growth of 8 times higher than those that didn't. So let's see this in action with a video.
Say you're advertising a premium product and you don't want your ad to appear when customers use queries like cheap because these aren't relevant for customers. Find your campaign or ad group. In the menu on the left, you'll find the negative targeting option. From here, click on the button to add negative keywords. Enter your negative keywords, set the match type, add them, and click Save. Now, your ad won't appear when shopper search terms match your negative keywords.
So you might be thinking, how do I identify key terms? And you can do this by looking at your search term report and identifying those low-performing keywords. Perhaps those that receive a lot of clicks, but little sales, or those that simply aren't relevant to your product at all. Then you'll add those to your negative targeting. So if we think back to the ROAS formula, which considers both sales and spend, it's easy to see how negative targeting can help you improve your ROAS. Since you're spending less on irrelevant keywords and clicks that don't convert, you're helping to reduce your spend. Those extra dollars that were previously allocated to low-performing keywords can now be allocated to higher-performing keywords with higher relevancy and conversion rates, ultimately helping to increase your ROAS and helping your product stand out. Now, I know that we covered a lot today already, so to recap the actions that you can take to help you get closer to the top 10% of brands, the first one is to launch a sponsored brands campaign. Second, launch sponsored display. Third, utilize sponsored brands store spotlight ad format. Then, use sponsored display views remarketing. Sticking with sponsored display, make sure that you're using both automated and custom creatives with different objectives. And then bringing it back to sponsored products, utilize negative keyword targeting. And now that we've learned about these tactics, I want to invite Jeff Cohen, who's an Amazon Ads evangelist, to the stage to discuss how you can apply some of these tactics that we discussed here today to stand out to customers in the Amazon store, along with other tips and strategies that he has to help you elevate your advertising strategy. So everyone, please join me in welcoming Jeff. Welcome, Jeff. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Yeah, beautiful audience, beautiful crowd, lots of data to share some of the background of why to do things. So it's always great to hear.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to have you today, and I know that the audience must be thrilled to hear more from you. So to start off, can you give us a brief introduction about yourself and about your current role at Amazon Ads?
Sure, thank you. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Jeff Cohen, and I started my journey in advertising back in 2005 when I started the website textbooks.com. Part of our sales were D2C, and part of our sales were through these small little websites called eBay and Amazon. And my journey of textbook sales kind of led me into selling other products in 2012. Really, when I kind of launched my first private label product was 2014, converted that to a brand. And around that same point in time, I was working with a software company. Some of you may have worked with them back in the day, Stellar Labs. They had a product called Feedback Genius. And so from 2012 to about a year and a half ago, I was with Stellar Labs running their product, their marketing, and their business development. And then I joined Amazon about almost 2 years ago as a tech evangelist. I went from kind of being one of you out in the audience, being a seller, being a service provider, to being somebody who works at Amazon. And I do a lot of blogging on LinkedIn, and I also work with all of our tech providers and service providers to understand Amazon Ads and how to integrate it into their roadmap.
Awesome. I love hearing about your role. It's so interesting to me. Yeah. And I think that you have so many different perspectives to share from, and I'm so excited to dive deeper into those today. So, Jeff, my main goal with our conversation today is to make sure that everyone here leaves this session understanding how to apply the tactics that we talked about today.
For sure.
So, can you just start diving into those a little bit?
Yeah, I think it was great, right, that Christina shared all these fantastic insights around return on ad spend. But we have to kind of understand that these all need to be tailored to your brand, right? Each one of you in the audience, you have specific challenges, you have specific goals, you have specific directions that you're trying to achieve.
So what goals and what problems are you talking about specifically?
Okay, so when we're just kind of focused on ROAS and we're not focused on some of the other data points that can be extracted from the insights from advertising, we may be missing things like, are we trying to grow new audiences, right? Those are gonna require a more long-term type of investment. Are we having products that are maybe similar to other products and we're trying to sell them in a relationship type of way? Are we trying to drive sales truly when shoppers are ready? Are they repeat purchases, right? That requires a different type of tactics. So all these different tactics and problems have different goals associated to them.
Yeah, you're completely right. And with that, I want to talk about these tactics in the context of two of those goals. So the first one that I'm thinking of is increasing conversions. And then the second one is driving brand visibility on Amazon. So to give a quick example here, let's say that you're a seller that's been advertising for a couple of months and you're seeing your return on investment, but you think that there's still room to grow. So you're looking for a way to increase your conversion rates and help your ads show up to relevant customers. What tips do you have, Jeff, to achieve these goals while getting the most of the advertising dollars that you're already spending?
All right, so I'm assuming that some of you in the audience have had this challenge before, right? Some head nods, thank you. All right, we like interaction. It kind of makes us feel like we're live here. We're live with you online. I think I could best kind of share this by telling a story of my own experience and how it relates to advertising. So I was shopping for a new hoodie. Fall's coming up, wanted a new hoodie, wanted something new and stylish. And I went into Amazon and I typed in men's hoodie. Well, the first thing that came up when I typed in men's hoodie was an ad for a cami. Now, I don't know about you, but I have no clue what a cami is. But I looked at it and I thought to myself, like, I don't think that's really for me. And I clicked on the ad, I went to go look at it, and I was really kind of baffled by like what it was and why that ad was showing up. So, that may have just happened for one shopper, but we have to remember that Amazon has millions of shoppers in any given month who are doing similar searches like this. And if a campaign is not optimized correctly, then you run that risk of showing that ad to an irrelevant audience, right? I'm an irrelevant audience for camis. And so this is where like really you can have a negative impact on your return on investment, your ROI.
Yeah, so it's so important to optimize your campaigns for relevance. So let's say you were the cami company.
Yeah.
What would you have done if you owned that brand? Would you maybe use negative keyword targeting to stop your ads from showing to irrelevant customers?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say is like, I don't know how their campaigns were structured, right? So when I was back in my agency days, I could look at these things, but now I can't. And so I would definitely, suggest you use negative keywords. You can be using negative keywords if you're doing broad match type of ads, and you can be adding the word men's in for negative keywords so that the ad isn't appearing for people who wouldn't be within your targeted customer. And these seem like really small optimizations that you can be doing with sponsored brands and sponsored display, but they really increase the relevancy and they reduce this wasted ad click, and they improve your performance, which I think is what everybody is looking for. And when I ran an agency and we would run audits on seller accounts, typically the lowest hanging fruit, right, where we could get the most immediate return on the investment of us as an agency was our ability to free up spend using negative keywords. And so I think it's an area that definitely would put high on the list of things to do when you leave here.
Yeah, and so from that experience, how would you go about identifying more keywords? And do you think that there are any do's and don'ts when it comes to adding negative keywords?
Yeah, I would probably stay with like a couple of just kind of basic strategies, right? There's a lot of strategies out there, but like remember, negative keywords are your friend, right? And that's how you want to be looking. So the manual way of doing it, I always like say there's a manual way, there's an automated way. The manual way of doing it is using your search term report, finding the keywords that aren't performing properly, giving them the eye test, right? You should be able to look at them and understand immediately whether that keyword is relevant for your product or not. There's also a lot of, Amazon ads technology and service providers that can help you as well and help automate this process. And so if you're at the point where you're trying to scale this, that's where you may want to look at using a technology as a service to help you scale.
Definitely, and I think that that's key for maximizing your advertising investment. So great tip there. And now I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to touch on sponsored display, which I did touch on during the presentation today. And I want to see how you see it playing into increasing relevancy and conversions.
Yeah, I mean, sponsored display it's very unique, right? Because as a brand, you're able to give Amazon these few inputs about what you're trying to do, and then you're using Amazon's machine learning. You guys heard about that in the keynote this morning, right? You're learning about this machine learning who's going in and trying to deliver you outcomes, right? And if you're familiar with Amazon's DSP, within DSP, you have to create your own audiences, set your own targeting, and optimize down to all those points. Sponsored display is really allowing you to automate this process through very few inputs. The other advantage of sponsored display is that it allows you to highlight your brand or your product. So you can kind of choose what you want. And then it shows up in various places, right? So you've got the product detail page. You may also refer to that as the PDP. You've got the shopping results page. And there's also like special places that it can show up on the Amazon homepage. It can show up on approved third-party websites or apps.
Yeah, and so can you touch on some of the benefits of that?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at, like the biggest is that it's gonna help increase addressability. And addressability is this term that we use, and we laugh because we kind of have these terms and we have to explain what they mean. But what you want to do is you want to increase the potential size of your audience. And if you're only looking at search as the size of your audience audience is limited, right? We'll call it limited to this. But when you add sponsored display and you add off Amazon, you've increased the audience to which you can serve that ad. And that's a great way to grow your brand. It's a great way for more customers to learn about your product and to have the potential to buy your product.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that that's a great way to conceptualize the benefits of sponsored display placements and to speak to the goals of increasing your visibility.
Yeah.
So now what about the problem of increasing relevancy and conversions? We saw that advertisers who use views remarketing saw a ROAS growth of 16 times more than those who didn't. So I'm wondering if you could shed some light as to why this may be and how to apply it.
Yeah, I think that I think this is where like the beauty of sponsored display starts to come in, right?
Yeah.
You're selecting your audience, Amazon's doing the work, and it's serving your ad to what we define internally as shoppers who have a high propensity to have a desire for your product, right? So views remarketing is very specifically looking at shoppers who have considered your product in the past. So those are kind of some, again, like low-hanging fruit. And then when you look at like purchase remarketing, those are people who have bought from you before. So depending on what your product is and what you're trying to do, when we go back to goals at the beginning, would determine which of these tactics you would want to use in building your campaign. They're all different ways that are helping you to move your customer along the funnel, and I think that's really important. So whether you're looking for loyalty or you're looking to repeat, there's these different signals that exist within Amazon Ads that you can take advantage of to drive more sales for your business.
Definitely, thank you so much. And is there anything else that you would like to add about sponsored display?
Yeah, I think like there's one more thing is like when you think about sponsored display, it requires this like, I guess the term I've been using is like it requires this psychological shift, right? So when you're doing everything ROAS-based or conversion-focused, you look at things like tacos, total cost of advertising sale, or you look at ACoS, the advertising cost of sale, and you've got this direct connection between the sale that's occurring and the ad that showed up. Well, sponsored display isn't always going to lead to a purchase. So you're not going to see this immediate ROAS, especially when you're like during this testing phase, which is why you have to give it kind of time to breathe is what we like to say. And this is also where you may want to look at using other metrics. And so there's metrics within Amazon Ads called new to brand, which is allowing you to say how many of the people shopping haven't bought from me in the past 12 months, or maybe store visits, driving people to your Amazon store. Ultimately, these different metrics are painting a signal or a picture of kind of how sponsored display is helping to build this long-term growth for you. So ROAS is important, right? I'm not telling you ROAS isn't important. I'm just saying there's other metrics that you need to be considering when you're trying to measure success.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. And that's something that I touched on today as well, too. So now we're at our Q&A, and I've learned so much from you today. And before we do get into our Q&A session, I just want to point out that Jeff will be leading a panel tomorrow morning at 10:50 a.m. with Better AMS and Garden of Life on growing your brand with upper funnel marketing initiatives.